Hey, and welcome to another episode of RevivalFlix, where we try to find some classic films, some very, very lost, in memory films, and we try to review it and watch it again with a new perspective, and maybe put it in evidence again. So, in today's episode, we're going to review a film called Rashomon. So this is from 1950, from the very famous director Akira Kurosawa. It probably was one of his first major productions that like really stood out, like in the world and so on. I was kind of like reading about it, but the interesting part here is how I got to know this film. So it was through the channel, and one of the goals of this channel is actually like to stumble upon like some interesting forgotten films, or like some surprises that could be hidden there and so on. So I was reviewing this not so old movie called Weapons, and it's a horror film. It has an episode in my channel if anyone wants to check it out. And so while I was like prepping, like what I was gonna say about the film and so on, because it has like this unique storytelling mechanism, which is it has a couple of names. Like I was like using ChatGPT, like to just to gather some information and so on. So I'm not really like very up to date, with the actual terms, like for screenwriting or filmmaking and so on. I did a course, like way back in the day, so I'm a bit outdated about that. But anyway, some terms popped up, so I could describe what was the mechanism of that film that was using and so on. So it's kind of like a multi-perspective narrative, but it also had like other denominations. So one of the denominations was the Rashomon effect storytelling, or Rashomon storytelling. So I got curious about that, especially since this is, I mean, the film is from 1950, right? So I was imagining, oh, okay, so let's see how that first, got experimented with. So everyone, probably lowers their expectations about that, like a film, such a long time ago, using such a sophisticated mechanism, like for script writing. And I must say, this is not the case actually. So it was done, like in a very high quality standards that could easily be like a modern movie. I wouldn't say like maybe a 2000 or like 20 movie, but for sure like an 80s 90s movie, for sure. Like the rhythm, everything about this film, it's very modern. It's very modern. I'm gonna get into more details about this, but just as a starter, just to tell you guys, like how I stumbled upon this film. So yeah, that's the backstory. So as I mentioned, the film from 1950. So again, when ChatGPT, commented about like this term, I went into IMDb, checked out, like its page, some of the details, and surprisingly, the rating was really high. It was like 8.1 as a rating. I was also surprised about the budget. It was, I mean, at least according to IMDb, it was stated as 250,000, but it was actually, it didn't actually make profit. I think worldwide revenue was like 142,000. So, so too bad about that. But anyway, I think it did win an Oscar, like an honorary award or something like that, like most outstanding foreign film released in the U.S. I'm not sure if that turned out to be like the best foreign film. But anyway, if anyone has any context about that, please leave in the comments so we can kind of like uh, say accurate things here. But anyway, I think it had also like other nominations, but it didn't win. But Actually, that was I think that was a big thing. Like 1950, a film from Japan and so on. I think it was a really big thing. Anyway, going into the crew, right? So we have the director and writer Akira Kurosawa, which is very very famous. I mean, I must confess that I'm not so up to date with his films, but I am going to be. Not because of this film, but because it was already like in my list. For for actually being up to date with films now that I have a bit more time. Like to explore stuff. Anyway, a couple of films, of course, stood out. So, Seven Samurai, I'm almost certain that I already watched this film, but for sure I don't remember about the details to comment about. So, I'm probably gonna watch again. So that's probably his reference or highest rated film. Maybe not the highest. Yeah, maybe it is the highest rated. But then we have also a film called Ren, and this is actually a bit more modern, So maybe yeah, from '85. So I do have high expectations about this film. I didn't watch it, but it is like in my top priority list to watch. So if I watch it and if it's worth it, for sure I'll post a review here. And also the actor. So we have Toshiro Mifune. For sure, I'm not pronouncing his name right, but anyway, it seems that he was really good in the film. He stood out for me, but it seems that he does a couple. He does many collaborations with Akira Kurosawa. So that just like emphasizes how good he is, right? And otherwise, I don't think a director would do so many films with a specific actor. But anyway, let's get into the review about the movie itself. As I mentioned initially, this is a movie that it was like planned like in a multi-perspective, right? If you guys are not so familiar with that, I'm gonna give you a couple of references. So, Weapons is the one of the most recent, but the thing about Weapons, which I like so much, is that it's a horror film, right? So that's not so common for us to see. A film, such elaborate film done in a multi perspective because it's really hard, like to coordinate and edit and make everything make sense and give also that effect. The common effects of a multi perspective film is that when you watch in one perspective, it gives you like an initial impression, and then when you watch in another character's perspective, it changes that perception that you initially had. So that's actually the valuable effect, right? So again, so for a film to have actually be kind of like the reference for this type of storytelling is really, I mean, just that alone you gotta give a lot of credit, and especially like it's not like a film done in Hollywood, so it's out of the main, I would say the main, the mainstream, right? So watching it, I mean, initially it's it's a film from 1950, so you need to prepare yourself, like for a slower paced film, right? So this was the case, but it wasn't as slow as the films were being done at the time. So the films at the time for sure have a much slower pace. So this I think already had like a faster pace. So in that sense, it's kind of like it brings us like closer to the modern films. So that was already very clear right from the start. And then about the storytelling itself, using that multi perspective, I mean, my expectations, for being one of the first. I'm going to research if it was in fact one of the first. I doubt that it was one of the first to use this kind of perspective. I can imagine, like films from the 1940s and so on, using that kind of technique. But anyway, I'm going to research deeper about that. But this one is kind of like the reference, even because it does give the name of that type of technique, right? So anyway, enough about that. So so my my curiosity really was like, oh, was it well done, you know, and in that sense, because again, making another reference to another film that I reviewed here in the channel. So I have a review about a film called Happy End. If you're not familiar with this film, please get familiar. I mean, it doesn't even have to be with my review, but anything about it. Happy End is it's a film from Czechoslovakia. Is it Czechoslovakia? Yeah, Czechoslovakia at the time. Today it doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, I got also the reference from a film that I reviewed called um, what's the name of the film? Irreversible. One of the most watched, probably. No, not, it isn't actually. Maybe the second most watched video in my channel. But anyway, this film, Irreversible, was like, it was maybe from 2000, 2002, and it had the storytelling backwards, right? So as soon as we hear, I mean, as soon as we know about, you know, like a film, you know, having a story told backwards, we instantly remember, you know, Chris Nolan's most famous, not most famous, but iconic film called Memento, right? So that really was the first thing that came into my mind, and so on. I think it was done a bit before, not so much before, but a bit, maybe I think it was in the 2000s, Memento, and then Irreversible, maybe 2002. So I also like using ChatGPT. I, you know, got some references of other films that had used that technique and so on, and it brought me to a to a film from 1965, from 1967 actually from Czechoslovakia called Happy End. And then I said, "Whoa, let me see how that film turns out to be." You know, I mean, a film so old, done backwards. I mean, the lowest expectations ever. But it, surprisingly enough, it was probably the best film I watched in 2025. If you didn't watch it, please watch it. It's very sophisticated. It's very modern. It's really. I became a fan of the director, and he's also the writer. So yeah, so just a side note about that. But going back to our review, so when we hear about like multi-perspective, I mentioned weapons, which is the most recent that I remember about. But there are also some films like this that also were very famous. So the two that popped up in my mind when I was reviewing that film, it was Crash and also Traffic. So I think it's Traffic. But anyway, these two are kind of like newer, you know, films done in the multi-perspective sense. So I think they're like from either late 90s or early 2000s. But but yeah, so in the list there were a bunch of them. I'm still gonna watch some of them that I don't quite remember if I watched it or not. But yeah, so I started. So again, what to expect from when you watch a film multi-perspective, right? So I went into this film with two intentions. First, to you know, as a curiosity, oh, let's see what was one of the first experimentations of a film done in multi-perspective, right? So low expectations, and surprisingly enough, the film was very well done. And the other goal, you know, like to what to get out of this film was, does it produce that effect that you change, you know, your impression about maybe a character, maybe the story, maybe whatever. And I gotta say that this film also reaches that goal, you know. So you know, it's a very good movie. I mean, the rating in IMDb, I don't think it's exaggerated. I would give something close to that, you know. But I'm going to go into more details about it. So we have that effect, right? That we change, you know, like our perspective or our impressions and so on during the film. That's really good, but that's not the only thing. So we have like, as I mentioned, like good editing. The pace is like I would say above average of what was being done at the time. And also there's the main plot which is not so elaborate, but in the middle of the film something happens, or maybe a perspective is told that it kind of gives a plot twist, and that's kind of the magic about it, specifically for this film. It has that perspective. It has somewhat a turn of events in the film that is kind of unexpected, and also mixes some multicultural, I would say, elements, right? I mean, again, we need to remind ourselves that this film is from 1950, like a multicultural, elemented film done in the 1950s by Japan. Really, this is this is really not common. So you got to give a lot of credit for that. But anyway, going moving forward, right? So there's also some philosophical, actually, discussions, not discussions actually, but during the film, it touches on philosophical themes, but not exactly like discussing it, but like showing in action, and then you think about, what's happening there. Why is a certain character thinking that way, and then you judge it, but you judge it based on just one of the perspectives, and then you watch another perspective, and then maybe you change that judgment. So there's a very well planned, I would say, like, a plot around this. What's happening there? There's kind of like a main event, like um, a main action, like a main, I would say a main occurrence there, but anyway, things change as you watch other perspectives, so it's very entertaining, entertaining for sure. So also there's one very remarkable transition of scenes, and I really can't imagine how how he pre-planned this. But I mean, I was actually reading about, Akira Kurosawa, so he's also like an artist. I think he was used to kind of like design the story. How do you call the storyboard? I think the storyboard for the films and so on. So he probably had this very well planned. So there's a transition, like in the middle to the end of the film, that is really like top notch. Like it's really very modern. It's no wonder that he's like so famous worldwide, but he's really an icon. And also, the score stood out. The score stood really out. I mean, it's not like a very like sophisticated, like orchestra and so on. But I would say that it matched really well with the film. The score, so also stood out for me. So, to whom I would recommend this film? Well, of course, if you're a Akira Kurosawa's fan, that's a first, right? If you like that, this kind of like multi-perspective films, for sure you got to watch this, because if it's not the first one, it's certainly the one of the first batch that was done this way. And also, if you're into like classic films, classic Japanese films, probably this is one must see. And even if you're not, if you're just, like, maybe just curious, about what this kind of film is, I think that's for you. So these are my recommendations. I hope you have fun watching this film. Please leave comments here, and if you know about a film that is done in this method, and it's like older than this one, from anywhere in the world, please leave in your comments. I I certainly have patience, to watch films like this, and again, just encouraging anyone to also create their channel and post, like, reviews about their favorite films, or films that they think that were unfairly unfairly judged at the time, and maybe today they got another chance. And let's bring back, like, old films and classic films, or hidden and lost films. And see you in the next one. Later.